Hi everyone, welcome to Coffee Break with Christine. Happy Monday. I hope you all had a great weekend. Today I'm going live with my friend Lacey McClaughlin. She is currently in Mexico, although she used to live here in Miami. So we will just wait a moment while she joins. Hi Jenny, how are you? Good to see you. Hello.
Hey, how's it going? I'm
Good.
in time.
Yes. Yeah, you look all, I saw you went for a run, so you got all dolled up for the interview
Yeah, thanks for giving me a reason to take a
to
shower.
shower.
Yeah,
I
very
feel like
therapeutic.
that too, some days.
Yeah.
How are you? How's Mexico? Tell us all, so tell us what you do and a little bit about your journey to entrepreneurship.
Well, I'm trained as a writer and a copywriter, but currently I'm coaching women to find their voice and to write copy, whether it's for their business or whatever way they want to get their voice out into the world, to really be able to step into that fully. So,
Mhm.
now that's really more coaching than anything else. But I'm also hosting teachings and workshops online. And I really fell back on writing because that was what I was trained in. And I had an event planning company, and that's why I moved to Miami. And when it became apparent that that event planning company was out of runway and I had to pivot really quickly, I knew that no matter what, I could write. So that's been a skill that actually, is really valuable. Writers are
Mhm.
pretty valuable. Often, writers who are like, you know, artists or journalists, like there is kind of a mentality that people don't read anymore, or like the newspaper industry is dying. And that was my background. I was a newspaper journalist for about 7 years.
Oh
And
wow. I didn't know that long.
yeah, yeah. So the mentality that, you know, um, people don't read and is not really true. Now more than ever, people are reading your posts on social media, they're reading your content, they're coming to your website, and they want to know what you have to say. So I think I was really surprised when I became a business owner for my event planning business, like how much I used writing, whether it was a press release, whether it was a deck to try to get sponsors for events. Like writing is selling, and you're constantly trying to persuade, whether you're sending like a cold pitch email, a warm pitch email, whatever it is. You're constantly like trying to persuade people to buy into what you do. So writing is, I
Hmm.
think, one of the most valuable skills you can have as a business owner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And how long have you been, when was it that you pivoted from the event planning to writing?
It's in November 2018.
Okay,
Yeah.
got you. I think that's right around when we met, actually. I just
Yeah.
moved here from Boston. Got you.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about like what kind of offers you have, what programs you're doing, classes, stuff like that to coach people now.
Well, I think my offers are kind of pivoting right now, and with the with the pandemic, I think a lot of people really have been going through a lot of shifts, and a lot of business
Hmm.
owners, as well as
Definitely.
myself. And, I, for a while, I kind of struggled with like the feeling like I was a real like creative, like artistic person, and like trying to like find that identity through also like finding the identity of entrepreneurship and like what it means to be a business owner, and like the time and energy required to build a business, but also the time and energy required to hone your craft as an artist, and the fact that
Hmm.
making a living from your art is something that doesn't happen overnight. It's kind of the long game. It's the thing that you show up for. For some people it does, but for I think the majority of people it can be a slower crawl. So balancing that, um, has often been a challenge. And that was one of the reasons I came to Mexico, is because I knew here, you know,
Are you there?
it shows me
Sorry.
back.
Could you okay. It's like spinning. Maybe if you leave and come back, it just keeps spinning. So she'll be right back. Good old internet problems. That's one thing when you travel to another country, you never know what the internet will be like. Let's try again. Hey, it's a bit, um, yes. Okay. Yep. So the
Okay.
last thing I heard was that's why I went to Mexico, but then I didn't hear
Yeah,
anything after
to get
that.
more, to have like more time freedom to do my own writing, working on a novel. So as I really love helping women nail their offers and like write really effective, persuasive copy for their sales pages and their funnels. And I can do all that all day long. But what I really love helping women do is find their voice. Because your voice is what comes out in your business and your creative work, your creative pursuits, whether it's writing or painting or, whatever it is, like that's you bringing the fullest expression of yourself into the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I found a lot of through journaling practices. Um, there's and I've recently started learning about journaling therapy, and I'm taking classes in it. And I see that work is really healing and important. So
Mm-hmm.
really, what I'm focusing on now is shifting to a space where I work with creative women on releasing creative blocks and finding their voice for however they want to show up in the world, if it's creatively or if it's coming through their business. Because being an entrepreneur at the end of the day really is about being creative. It's about, you can take that same level of creativity that an artist brings to the canvas and you can bring that to your business, but you have to be in that flow state. You have to like remove self-doubt. You have to really believe in your ideas and be able to see them through. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we block ourselves from doing that. And when we can really get to know ourselves and really find out what it is we're here for and what we have to say, and bring that into the world, that is what really creates a long lasting impact.
Absolutely. Um, and I think it definitely takes a special kind of person to be able to pull that out of women. And I know one thing, especially about you, is that when you have a client, you get to know them really on a deep level so that
Oh,
you're able to really, help them tell their story and what's
mm-hmm.
important in order to share their message.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so what's your favorite part about your business or being an entrepreneur?
Definitely the freedom of time, it becomes like more clear a few years ago when I really got the ping that I wanted to work remotely. I wasn't really ready to be an entrepreneur. I was working in marketing for a university, and I was a content writer, and like 80% of my work could be done off campus, you know, from wherever. And I really tried to create a remote job for myself, and I had my event planning company on the side, and was not successful in doing that. And it's just so funny how much the world has changed. Like that whole, you know, my whole old department from the university is like all working remotely now. And I think for a lot of people, it's opening their eyes to like the freedom of location and time. And I think, you know, my favorite thing is just not having to ask for permission when I want to do something, whether it's like meeting a friend for coffee in the middle of the day, or you know, like booking a trip or something like that. And you know, I think everyone should have that freedom. I remember when I was years ago when my grandmother was dying in the hospital, and you know, I was out of like vacation days, sick days. I was using like every day I had possible. And because she hadn't passed away yet, and you know, there was like a long process for like family leave, and I was like, no, like she won't be around like, you know, next week, so it's not even worth doing that process. And how much, like, on top of losing my grandmother, how much stress I had to deal with just getting the time and the permission off work to like be at her bedside for 2 weeks. That was like the moment where I was like, I don't want to be in a system that makes people make these kind of choices between work and family. And that's really, I think, you know, it took a few years before I really got like the courage to leave. But when I did, like, it's those kind of moments you remember, you know, at the end of your life, not the time that you said yes to your boss and like stayed at your desk while, you know, a family member either had like, you know, a milestone event or passed away.
Absolutely. I totally get that.
Yeah.
And what would you say the most difficult aspect of entrepreneurship has been for you along your journey?
I think, yeah, I mean, financially, it really can rock you in so many ways. It's a completely different experience than knowing that every 2 weeks you're going to get a paycheck. I think a lot of people have gone through this recently with the pandemic, that you know, that certainty you feel like, you know, no matter what happens, you're going to have that paycheck coming. So I think a lot of people are experiencing that now. For me, this like really it was like a process even to know what my time was worth, how long things really took. You know, looking at, okay, I'm not just paying myself, I'm paying like taxes, I'm paying health insurance, I'm paying for like my technology, like I'm paying for my like software. Like when you take into those things in account, you really start charging like more what you're worth. And then the time you really spend like getting your head into like a client's work and business can be a lot. So I think that's something like that took a while on my end, was to, and like the fear around like, am I going to be okay financially? Can I make this work? And that can take, like, it feels, it's like a weird place to be when, you know, you're like for me, I was like in my 30s, and like a lot of my friends were getting married, and like they were kind of like marching on with like the life that like you're supposed to have in a capitalistic society. And I felt like, what's, you know, like I sold my house, like financially this is really stressful. I can't do the kind of things that I used to be able to do. I felt like my class status for the first like 2 years of starting a business like fell. And I think in America, like we're really attached to like our status and our status symbols. I mean, it's the same in Mexico, so it's the same all over the world. But like it's a temporary, it doesn't mean like you have to suffer or lose money or like have to go through that, but like you have to kind of go through it mentally. Like you have to be willing to be like, this could all fall apart, or like I could take a big financial loss that like could temporarily remove me from some of the ways like I experience life and relationships, like, going to
Mm-hmm.
going to like a $70 brunch in Miami, like on a Sunday might not be something I can do while I'm building my business, but like I'm building something that's worth more in the long run. So I think the social pressure, um, the FOMO, especially if you're like, you know, moving through life, like, they're seeing other people like hit milestones. But if you really want to do it, you really want to build this life, like there's not financial certainty in it, but there's not financial
Right.
certainty in anything. So you have to
Right.
just be willing to really bet on yourself. And if you're not willing to do it, then like it it's a much harder process. Like you're gonna have to go through a lot of inner turmoil if you're not like fully like your biggest advocate, best friend, and like the biggest like supporter in yourself.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important too to remember your why, like
Mm-hmm.
why you're doing
Yeah.
this, because a lot of it is perspective too. Like, yes, you might not be able to go to those $70 brunches, but like you said, you have the flexibility of time. And maybe someone who is going to the $70 brunches is like, oh, I wish I could travel more. I wish I could make my own
Right.
schedule.
Right.
So it's just
Yeah.
really prioritizing what's important to us and just never giving up, like keep pivoting where needed and chasing after our goals. And I remember going to your house and you had everything like mapped out on your whiteboard and like how much you wanted to make a month. And so I'm just curious how you plan now. Is it the same, like living in Mexico, or how do you plan out your months or your weeks?
It's just shifted so much, like with the pandemic, and
Mm-hmm.
I I've really gotten like into more of a state of like flow and trust, and I feel like that has been better than actually like number crunching and like setting projections. Like I just think at this point,
Mm-hmm.
like we don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's like the energy that you bring to things, and like
Mm-hmm.
having an idea of like what my expenses are, like that's important to know. But also like, I've just noticed that there are some months where, it's really, really good. And so I used to have like a really great month and be like, this is it. Like, it's only going to keep growing from here. Like every month after this is just going to like double, I was like really in that. And then when I'd have a bad month, I'd be like, I'm a failure. Like, what's wrong with me? I'd be like thinking all those things. And now when I have a good month, I'm like, cool. Like, I hope that it keeps growing, but like growth is kind of like this. It's not always like that. So when I have a good month, I try to like save a little bit more to know that like I've had down months in the past. So like that, those highs and lows were like took a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I have, there's like the real soul juicy work that I love to do that I'm stepping into more, which is the coaching, which is journaling workshops, which is like, teaching people how to write. And I love it. Like it doesn't even feel like work, but and writing my novel clearly. Like but the financial return is a little bit lower on those things right now. So that means that, I have really good relationships with some agencies, and I, can reach out to them and they pay pretty well. It's not always like the most like, my first choice for work, but
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty interesting. It's people I like to work with, and having those relationships, like I can always tap those wells like there with having those good agency relationships, and that can help me like supplement, my income while I continue to build out my platform, um, you know, for what I'm creating now. So I think it's a lot like anything's possible, you know. I just sometimes see like entrepreneurs, especially when they're first starting out, like make these really ambitious goals, but like not have a, they're just like, I'm just going to manifest like, 5 clients and make 10K this month doing this thing. And they're kind of like limiting the possibility of like how money can come to them in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there's this idea like the thing like being in full alignment means you only say yes to the things that, like that completely set your soul on fire. But I think being in alignment is saying yes to the things that like give you stability and peace and help you walk down that path of doing the things that set your soul on fire. Because if you look at great authors and great people who have achieved like really great things, they didn't just say like, I'm in alignment, like everything comes to me. Like, you know, they usually had to overcome a lot of challenges. And I believe those challenges are just like the test from the universe saying like, you know, how bad do you really want this? Like, how much are you willing to like go all in on this dream? And then in the end, we appreciate it so much more because of those challenges we've overcome along the way.
That's true.
Yeah.
I love that. So you were talking a little bit about the emotional ups and downs. So I think I know your answer, but how do you deal with, or how do you suggest people deal with the emotional ups and downs of entrepreneurship?
I think just checking in with yourself, like having a daily practice where you get to check in with yourself. And to me, that really helps. So, you know, that can look like journaling every morning, and just kind of like tapping into that like intuitive part of myself, and knowing and like reflecting on, okay, when have things been like really hard before? What happened? Did I die? Like, you know, even when like the worst, even like when the things I feared the most like happened, like I still turned out okay. So I kind of know that more now, and I always know there's like always a plan B. There's always like something that comes through, just like not in the way that I expect. And I think like for me, I do a lot of Kundalini yoga. I find that like anyway, and I've just gotten into like movement too. I wouldn't really call it dance. Like it is kind of a exotic dance, but like more like movement where, you know, it's not about like dancing on a beat. It's about like feeling into your body and like connecting with your body and like getting out of your head. So if you can get out of your head by doing things that make you feel creative, that make you feel expansive, that like get you into your body and not up here, then I find that you can shift the energy. And when you shift your internal energy during those times where things are really challenging, then you know you can show up better in your business. And you like I've just learned that if you show up like if you're showing up like in a really frantic state, in a really worried state, in a state of like lack, that energy only like kind of
Keeps
create more of
growing.
it, or you're like attract the same kind of client. So the most important thing you can do is really work on shifting your state, even when it's really hard. Because I mean, even like this pandemic has been a lot of moments of that. And I think it's just taught me to be more compassionate with myself, because the initial start of the pandemic brought up like so much fear and uncertainty that all of my ideas of like pivoting and being productive and like all the things I needed to do, I just had to like give myself a lot of compassion and just work through it. And like I think we just want that state to change. Like I just want to feel good again. Like I should feel good again. I should do this like Kundalini class and feel like I'm back to my old self. And what I found sitting in discomfort is just that. Like it's just recognizing like this feels like shit right now. And I don't know how long it's going to feel like shit, but I'm going to feel it. I'm not going to like act from this place. I'm going to see what else is like bringing up for me. Maybe it's things from my past, or like maybe it's just stuff I haven't addressed, and knowing that it's not going to be forever. Because I think once we get in those really low states, we're like, this is just my life now. Like this is forever. Like I'm never getting another client again. Like, and that's not really true, but it just feels like it. Like it feels like we're in quarantine forever. Like when is this going to go away? Like when will life truly be normal again? And you know, it's one day like you'll be doing something you like that wasn't possible during lockdown or in quarantine, or like you won't be constantly like risk analysis, you know, on like infecting people, and you'll be like, oh, like it'll just happen. And the thing you wanted for so long, the way you wanted to feel for so long, just like happen, like it's just there, and business is the same way too. Like, why can't I make the money? Like, when I can make the money, when I can be successful, like then da 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 will happen. And we like want that so bad, but we don't like realize that it's just part of the process of getting there. And like once we get it, it's so easy just to move on to the next thing that we want. But like it just takes time. So I don't know if that helps, but
Yeah.
I think it's like the self-compassion, and just even when you try to like do something creative or do Kundalini, like to me, those things help me feel more secure and like stable, and they keep me from like continuing the spiral, but they don't always like, they're not like a surefire like way to just change my state and feel amazing, right? Like
Yeah.
they sometimes like those modalities are just there to like just stabilize me, and I still might feel bad, or I still might have like some weeks where I'm not productive. So that's just how I've navigated my way through. But I've definitely been in the trenches a few times. So, if
We
anyone's
all have.
like and I, that I like to help people in those moments too, because I've been there and I know how terrible it feels.
Yeah. Especially when there's no end in sight. Like, it will end, but that it's not like, okay, June 30th, like Corona is over, So
Yeah.
it's trusting ourselves and trusting the process and knowing like it will end eventually, but just keep moving forward
Yeah.
till that happens. So,
Yeah, and hope is like the most important thing that we can have. Like, hope is really the antidote to fear. And when I'm feeling more hopeful about the world, when I'm feeling more hopeful about, what I'm going to create, I tend to like be happier, more productive, like things tend to like flow better. And so sometimes the missing piece is just hope. And if you're looking into the future, all you feel is like just, like you're seeing like apocalyptic signs. Like, I know it's hard not to sometimes, but I like to focus on more like people who inspire me. I'm I have this thing. Anytime I'm like feeling really hopeless, I watch Carl Sagan, because he like gives this high level view on humanity that like no one, I don't think, has done since him. And I'm like, oh yeah, like humans have overcome a lot of shit. Like, we're still like a young species, as he says. Like, it gives just this really high level view of like what's going on. And I just connect with people who are like really visionary, who can see the big picture and can still remain hopeful. And those are the voices we really need to hear right now. And we all have the ability to be that voice for the world too. If we do the work, we're willing to like show up and offer our gifts in times of uncertainty and crisis. So I think that's important to remember, is like, we all have that. You don't have to just like be like, I'm going to focus on the greats, because we all have that inside us. So right now, more than ever, like, people need to hear from you. Like, your gifts are really important right now, and the ways that like you can help the world like are like, if you've been sitting on your gifts for a long time, no matter what they are, like, now is really the time to go for it,
let them
to
out.
really put out into the world like what you're here to do.
That's awesome. Well, we are pretty much out of time, but as I ask everybody, I wanted to know, what's your favorite hot drink? I know you're a coffee lady. Did you hear me?
What was the last part?
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that we were out of time, but I always ask everybody what your favorite hot drink is. I know you're a coffee lady.
I do like coffee, like way too much.
Me too.
I have this, I haven't been to Starbucks in like probably, I think the last time I was at Starbucks was like early March. And I used to work at Starbucks, so I really actually like, as much as they're like, you know, a corporate coffee chain, like I really do believe in supporting local coffee chains, like
Mm-hmm.
I mean local coffee shops as much as possible. But like I have, you know, like my like drink at Starbucks that is like the thing that is like my go-to, and I, you know, whenever I go. So I am looking forward to having I get a black eye, which is like the darkest coffee roast with a shot of espresso added, and then I add like 1 pump of white mocha because we don't want to do all the sugary pumps with some cream, and that's like, you know, I feel like I shouldn't even say like Starbucks coffee, but it's been
That's
so long since
okay.
I've had that. Like I just getting that shot in the espresso, or I'll get that other places too. Just like put a shot in my coffee, please, and like put 1 pump of some really like sugary syrup, but only 1 pump because it's not so bad. And then I am like woke for the day. I'm like, I am woke now. I'm gonna like make it happen.
Nice.
Coffee shop. Can't wait to do that again.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Tell everybody where they can find you.
The Lacey Elizabeth on Instagram, which you can see my name right here. So that's like an easy way to find me. And then I have a podcast on iTunes called Who You Know. So if you search on iTunes, it'll pop up. And that's, I think, where I share like a lot of juicy goodness. So
Awesome.
yeah, thanks for having me on. This was super fun. And I love all the work that you're doing to really highlight and like women in your circle. I think it's great. So keep it up.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Well, I hope to see you soon. Let me know when you're back in Miami
I will.
and
Hopefully
I'll
it'll be
talk to
sooner
you.
than later. Okay.
Yeah. Have a good
All right.
day.
Bye.
Bye.